Welcome to Book Buddies, where today we're returning to the world of How to Train Your Dragon with a little ranking video. I have a full review for the series that I released a couple of weeks ago, so I would definitely recommend checking that one out before this one. And I should say, before I properly rank these, all these are fun books. Just because I put a book at the bottom doesn't mean it's bad, and I think it is a series where if this is the weakest you're at, you'd have a pretty good series. So, with all that out of the way, let's get into it. So, coming in at number 12, I have Book 6, which is A Hero's Guide to Deadly Dragons. Like I mentioned earlier, this isn't a bad book, but if you've seen my review for the full series, you'll know that some of the middle books feel a little filler-esque, and this one probably feels the most filler. Especially because I'm pretty sure this is the shortest book in the series, and just the last chunk is a Dragon's Guide, which is fun and all, but it does take away from the story. Yeah, so the story itself is fewer than 200 pages, and as you can see, a huge chunk of this is not related to the stories. However, there are a lot of things I do like about it. The story takes place around Hiccup's birthday, which is fun, and I do love how it does also take place around a library, because I'm a bookworm and I love libraries. And even if the Dragon's Guide is a little long, I think it is fun to look through and kind of see more about different dragons. So, yeah, overall, not a bad book, but I don't feel bad saying this is the weakest in the series. Next up, we have Book 7, which is How to Ride a Dragon Storm. In this one, Hiccup is in a race, and he gets a little lost, specifically at sea. And this one kind of falls into the same category as the 6th one, where it feels like filler. It's fun and all, but also a little forgettable. Finally making it into our top 10, we have Book 9, which is How to Steal a Dragon's Sword. Now we're getting a little bit more back into the main story. This one, it doesn't feel as much of a filler story, but I do think it is a little bit more forgettable compared to the last 4 books in the series. I do like how we get a little bit more of Alvin the Treacherous, who is our main antagonist and wasn't as big of a part in some of the middle books, I feel like. And his mom's also in here, and she's a very fascinating character, being, I believe she's kind of a witch. And now we see how truly threatening Alvin can be, not just with Hiccup, which he's been doing throughout the series, but he becomes more threatening with the tribe, so that's what makes this book rather interesting. Next up is Book 4, which is How to Cheat a Dragon's Curse. So I think this is the first book in the series where I kind of felt like little side quests rather than a real part of the big full story. I think this is also when I started to notice how repetitive they could kind of get. There are some things that do make it stand out from the first 3 books in the series. Fish Legs gets really sick, people think he's gonna die, and in order to save him, Hiccup needs to go on a quest. And Count Hamikaze comes in. We met her in the previous books, but she has a bigger role here, especially because she's the main buddy of Hiccup throughout the story. And I really enjoy getting to see their dynamic because they are a lot more different compared to Hiccup and Fish Legs. And overall, this was fun. Not the best book in the series, but still a fun book. In a similar vein, we have Book 5, which is How to Twist a Dragon's Tail. In this book, we get a few more characters, and a lot of fun. Alvin is back. We also get to learn a little bit more about Hiccup's parents, specifically like with the past and his mom. And overall, once again, really fun. Now we get to some of the later books in the series with Book 10, which is How to Seize a Dragon's Jewel. So Hiccup is a little bit more on his own for this one. Alvin is becoming more powerful with the tribe. I believe he's taken people as slaves and has even force them to bear this mark. And it's becoming more intense. This is, like I mentioned in my review, I compared the tone of this series a little bit to Harry Potter, where the earlier books are a little bit more lighthearted and silly, while as the series goes on, the later ones become a little bit more mature and a little darker with higher stakes. I don't think it gets as dark as Harry Potter, but you can definitely tell that this isn't as innocent as the earlier stories. And I enjoy that about this series. And I like getting to see where Hiccup and his friends are at this point of the story. Next up, we have Book 8, which is How to Break a Dragon's Heart. So books 4 through 7, I felt I was enjoying them, but they were getting a little bit repetitive and felt a little bit more side questy. And I think this book I remember really, really enjoying afterwards. I think for my Goodreads review, I mentioned that it was the best in the series since book 3. And I think the story is fun. There's a little miscommunication in it, but it does lead to some fun little results. We get to see another side of Fishlegs that wasn't really presented earlier. And I love what he and Hiccup do in this book. I think it does a good job of kind of teeing up to the darker part of the series. Alright, now we're getting into the top 5, which I begin with Book 11, How to Betray a Dragon's Hero. This is the penultimate book in the series, and it's the one where all the pieces are finally being moved for the final battle, and the stakes are higher than ever. There's even like a major character death in this series, which is definitely a shocker, especially compared to where he was at the start of the series. And it has a really strong emotional impact, and I think it does a great job of leaving you wanting more for the final one and knowing that it is going to deliver what you want. Number 4 on the list, I'm gonna go with Book 3, How to Speak Dragonese. This was a lot of fun. So at this point of the series, we know our main characters a little bit more, know more of the stakes, but we get to learn a little bit more of the world. I believe Kamikaze has a bigger part in this than she did in the first 2 books, and her dynamic with Hiccup, Fishlegs, and Toothless is a lot of fun. I like getting to see them on their adventure and hearing a little bit more about what Dragonese is like. And of course, Alvin is back. He is being threatening in this story, and his role is great. So number 3 on the ranking, going with the original. This is the one that started everything. We get to meet Hiccup and Fishlegs and all the other characters in their lives. We get to see Hiccup meet Toothless, who at first is very difficult to train. He's not obedient. He wants to be his own dragon. But as the story goes on, not just in this book, but in the full series, we see how the relationship develops and we fall in love with the bond that they go through. I really like the lore of the story and kind of seeing how Hiccup is not like the other Vikings in his tribe, but he wants to stand out and make something of himself. And ultimately, there's a point of the story when he has the book and he knows, I can't train a dragon like this, but I know there's a way I can. So he starts learning how to train his dragon and goes through this adventure where he begins to find himself, and of course, this lasts through the entire series. Our runner-up is the second book of the series, How to Be a Pirate. This book does everything that a good sequel should do. It takes advantage of the knowledge that we have as the reader from the first book. It builds up more of the world and the characters, but of course we put them in a new journey and they're not ready for it yet necessarily. And of course, as the story goes on, they grow, they mature, and they learn new things specifically about themselves. Also, it's interesting how this is the only book in the series that doesn't have the word dragon in the title outside of the How to Train Your Dragon series name. However, I think my favorite of the series is gonna have to be Book 12, This is the conclusion for the entire story series. We get to see how all the characters have grown. We get answers to questions that we've been having earlier on. And it just has a really beautiful emotional core with some of the characters saying goodbye to one another, but also us the readers saying goodbye to the characters that we've grown to love throughout all 12 books. And the payoff is just beautiful. It leaves you satisfied, but also you want more because you don't want to leave these characters. They're your friends. Just this is what a good book series should end like. It should be satisfying and a little bit emotional because you're saying goodbye. So that's my ranking for all 12 of these books. It was a little bit hard because they're all really fun books. And like I said earlier, the weakest book in the series is still a lot of fun and it shouldn't be ashamed of itself. So if you enjoy this, please share it with your friends. I'm Louisa Hammond, and I'll see you next time.